little bit better every year. I think the questions are getting more and more pointed and poignant. And I think we've challenged the candidates to really dig down deep so we can figure out what they're going to do for our town. This is really an important night to me because we have sometimes a difficult time getting people in Van Alstyne to join some of the things that we've got going on downtown, or whether we're having a downtown jam or whatever it is. But this is the night that's really, really important to me. If you look around at each other, this is the group that is going to really lead Van Alstyne. I mean, this is the group that cares enough to come in and learn what their candidates have to say, and they care enough to come in so that they can vote to help steer this town in the direction they want it to go, instead of just sitting back saying, somebody will do it. It's really good. You ought to really give each other a hand for showing up here tonight and taking part in this. We've got MJ Presley's going to run the timer tonight, again, as per usual. We have Stephanie Cheritonenko. I knew I was going to miss it, but there, I made up for it. I'll say it twice, Cheritonenko. We wanted to get some of the rules straightened out before we even start. We're going to do what we've done in the past. You're going to each of the candidates will have about 3 minutes to give a little brief bio or history about themselves, or why they think they want to run for this position, or what it is you think you can do for the city. Pretty much you can talk about blueberry wine if that's what you want to do, but it'll be completely wasted time. This is a good opportunity for you to help people, get to know you and what your positions are. Again, we're not going to allow, I don't think we have that problem too much these days, but we're not going to allow any pointing fingers at anyone or talking directly about another candidate. You address the questions that are asked of you, and that's it. You can't say, well, Steve said this and Jimmy said this. We won't be putting up with that. You'll have 2 minutes to answer a question, and when MJ gives a signal, if you're not done by 2 minutes, the guy goes ape. Really, you don't want to go there. You don't want to go beyond 2 minutes, because MJ jumps up on the table. It's something we really want to avoid. So, just so that you know that. I think it's going to be a good evening. I've got the questions. Some of you have submitted questions. I'm going to go through them. We got a couple of people that are going to go through them. And we're going to put them in order that we can answer as many as we can tonight, so we don't have a whole lot of time to look at these. So in an effort to waste a little time, I'm going to introduce you to our mayor. And I'm joking, of course. Ms. Kim DeMasters is here, and I would like her to address the audience while we go and kind of read over these questions. Thanks.
Do I need to moderate already? I love to be announced as a waste of time. Anyway, I'm Kim DeMasters. Most of you know who I am. I was elected last May, and it's been an amazing ride for me. One of the things that I'd like to bring to your attention is that we have kind of come up with the slogan, Van Alstyne Vote Community 2012. And if you would like one of these posters, we've got plenty of them to put in your business window, or if you want to put one in your car window. We've got some great things that have been happening in Van Alstyne in the last year. As most of you know, we lost our last city manager. We had an interim for 6 months. That was kind of a crazy time. We have a new city manager, Philip Rodriguez, who has done an amazing job. He's taken us leaps and bounds in the last 6 months. Well, 5 months, I guess. And I'm sorry to say he's not here tonight. He's in a training. But if you can, some of the positive things that have happened since he's been here, if you can drive by most of our parks, Our parks are amazing right now, and he's updated our codes to where the new businesses that are coming to town, our ordinances, new business, it makes it a whole lot easier for new businesses to come to town to get permits, for residents that are coming to town to pay for their permits. He's just done some amazing things, not just him, but I mean the council with him in, you know, as the leadership. And I just would love to, if you haven't met him, take the time to go down to the city hall and meet him. We've had some staff changes that have been really good. Our city police department has changed a little bit. Our fire department's changed slightly. And some amazing things are happening right now. It's really important, and I thank these gentlemen and lady here because it takes a lot of self-assuredness to run for a position. It takes a lot of time, and it's a very thankless job. And, you know, I keep telling City Hall that they've got my address wrong because I haven't got my paycheck yet. That big fat paycheck that I'm supposed to get every month, I just haven't got it yet. So I keep telling them they've got the wrong address. But anyways, I just commend these gentlemen and this lady for running for this position because it takes a lot of time and a lot of gumption to do what they are out here to do. They are your voice. You guys need to take the time to visit with them, get to know them, find out who they are, what they represent, and make an educated vote because they're going to be your voice for the next 2 years. And you guys really need to take the time to get to know them. And I thank you guys for taking the time to be here this evening. And I just really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And Stephanie? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you also to the Chamber of Commerce for having me come here to serve as moderator for the Meet the Candidate Night. It's a pleasure to be back in Van Alstyne after being away for about a year. I'm just a little south in Fairview. We have a lot to go through, and I think we went through the rules pretty quickly. We're going to have each of the candidates introduce themselves for 3 minutes each. We're going to go in alphabetical order, so there's no preference. And then after the introductions, we will have a series of questions. I don't want to waste too much time because even with the time going to 8:30, we will only have around time for about 8 questions. So for that reason, we need to keep the responses to 2 minutes each. And we will go alphabetically for those as well, in an order where everyone gets a question at least first and has the time also to answer the question last. So without further ado, let's go ahead and have the candidates introduce themselves. And we'll start with Mr. Jennings.
Okay.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Okay. First off, I'd like to thank each of you for being here, and I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting this evening. It may be hard to fill 3 minutes, but I'll try. I've been a resident of Van Alstyne since 2005. Moved here to be near our son and my wife. I've been married for 38 years to Becky in the back. We moved here for her to be a babysitter for grandchildren. So, have one son. He resides here also, and all 3 grandchildren are in the Van Alstyne School District. They pretty much are our life now. Just hold it, okay. A little bit about me. I moved here in 1986 to the Texoma area. I lived in Pottsboro for about 18 years before moving into Van Alstyne.
John.
Yes. Okay. Moved here in 2005. I came here in 1986 and lived in Pottsboro for about 17 years. I'm a Vietnam era U.S. Navy veteran, served in the Navy, honorably discharged. I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in Management. I have 30 years experience, or just over 30 years experience in industrial maintenance and facilities management. I was raised in a small farming community in the Panhandle of Texas, so fully understand small town heritage in that. Found an interest in city, wanting to help the city when I got to Van Alstyne, and began watching growth to the south, and wondered a little bit about why Van Alstyne didn't seem to be growing. Wanted to get involved more with that and see if we could help, I could help the city go in a positive direction. And that's about it for now.
Okay.
My name's Robert Lewis. I want to thank y'all for having me here tonight. I moved to Van Alstyne 40 years ago. I married my wife of 38 years. We've raised 3 sons in Van Alstyne. They all still reside in Van Alstyne. My grandkids go to Van Alstyne ISD. In '77, I started a construction company in this town. And one day I was working and I kept hearing this siren go off, and I went to find out what it was, and it was the fire department looking for firemen. I spent 28 years with the fire department, volunteered, and 2 years of paid. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoy the city of Van Alstyne. I was instrumental in getting the ambulance service established for the city of Van Alstyne and make it a combination paid and volunteer fire department. I was also instrumental in adding the living quarters and everything to the back of the fire station, along with the police department that we have at no expense to the city of Van Alstyne. So you can tell that I thoroughly enjoy the city of Van Alstyne, and I want to see Van Alstyne move forwards and prosper. Everybody's gonna holler, well, can you fix my street? That's the key factor to Van Alstyne. Can you fix my street? You know, yes, eventually your streets will be fixed, okay? But it's gonna take everybody working together. And I want to see Van Alstyne prosper and have what some of these other cities has, so it'll be easier for us to fix streets. And I hope by being a candidate and being able to serve the city that maybe I can help make that possible. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Jim Smith. I'm running as the incumbent for the Van Alstyne City Council, Place 2. 2 years ago, when I made the decision to run for City Council, I found a spot in my mind in the future for Van Alstyne. I looked down the road to where Van Alstyne needed to be in 10 years. I've adjusted my thinking, mainly because of citizens' comments and concerns and their comments to me, but my course has stayed the same. I haven't flip-flopped. I still have a vision for where Van Alstyne needs to be, and it's not a quick fix. It's going to take 10 years, and I've dedicated that in my mind to the city of Van Alstyne as long as the citizens will have me and there's a need for me and I have the health to do it. During the time I've been on the city council, I've seen a lot of people talk about the past, and I'm very respectful of the past. I enjoy listening to the stories of the past of Van Alstyne, and I enjoy talking to what I call my advisors that drink coffee over at the drugstore every morning as my historical advisors, and I treasure those comments in that time. But you can't plan for the future if you're living in the past. When you go to bed at night, you have a reasonable expectation to wake up at some point in the future, whether it's 6 hours or 8 hours or 7, however many hours you sleep. You're not going to wake up in the past. You can't live in the past and plan for the future. Now, during my time on the city council here in Van Alstyne, the past 2 years, I have stepped on some toes. I have disrupted some patterns of behavior, and I have exposed some wrongs. What I feel like we have accomplished, or I have accomplished along with the council and the mayor, is that we have cleared a path to allow Van Alstyne to grow. We have changed management on several levels with the city of Van Alstyne, and I feel like that's just part of clearing the path. We have to have an effective city management team, and that includes the city manager, the mayor, the council, and it takes all of us working together. It takes the management team and especially the understanding and consideration of the citizens of Van Alstyne. I'm going to ask you tonight for your vote on May 12th so I can allow me to continue to do what I've been doing for the last 2 years, and that is trying to make Van Alstyne a better place to live and to do business.
Hi, my name's Karen Teuber, and I've lived in Van Alstyne for over 20 years. I've been sort of below the surface in doing a lot of things within the city. I was the city election clerk, or excuse me, judge for 16 years. And then I've worked with teaching English as a second language in town and also in other outlying communities. I've worked and taught ballroom dancing here in town, as well as for the colleges from Paris to Grayson Community College and up to Southeastern Oklahoma State University. I've spent a lot of time getting ready for this position because I've been trying to find out just what does a city council person do. And to me, my goals for city council are that we have transparency in the council and that the citizens know what we're doing, that they can look at the budget, that they can see the minutes of the meetings, that they can also know, what is happening, get feedback from different decisions that are made. We need to know, and not just, the newspaper gives us some findings, but I think it's important that these things be online, that the checkbook be online, so that we are wide open, that everyone can see what's going on. I feel that it's extremely important that the citizens be able to approach a person and talk. I mean, just walking, I've been walking the streets, going from door to door, handing out literature. And, people were talking to me about the creek, problems they have there, and too many police cars, and a lot of the problems that they're encountering that they would like to be taken up and discussed. So we need to make some changes, and I feel that being wide open to the people and accessible is extremely important. So transparency, accountability, having a good business environment, a friendly business environment, and also regulations that make sense. And that was brought home at one of the meetings where a gentleman was talking about the shed that he was trying to put up and what is compatible or that. So anyhow,
Time.
I thank you and I ask for your vote.
Thank you for the introductions all. I need to make a note that one of our candidates who's running was unable to be here today. He did phone in earlier today to mention that he couldn't make it. This is Adam Weiss. Mr. Weiss had to be out of town and so couldn't appear tonight. We're ahead of time, which is great, so it may leave some more room for questions. And I also, before we dive into the questions, want to give my own thanks for the participants here in the audience, that you would take today, the tax day. I'm sure some of us are very tired having to go to the post office and submit it, but we have that behind us, so let us be re-energized by having another year to wait. So without further ado, because we may end up taking more times with questions, even though we're one short tonight, let's go ahead right in. The first question is this. In the years you've spent in Van Alstyne, what have you done in community service activity for the city? And we will start with Mr. Jennings, please.
As I said, I moved here in 2005, and at that time I had built a home in Georgetown. Since my moving here, I became very active and involved with the city because of the home I built in Georgetown. There was issues there in regards to the HOA. There were some issues early on in around 2006 with the city. My first contact with the city was actually because of some discrepancies in water billing. Some of you in here may have been involved in that, I don't recall. In some of those dealings, I became very familiar with the city manager at that time, the mayor at that time, the council at that time. Began the efforts to help improve some of the conditions we had in Georgetown. Led the effort, along with some assistance from neighbors, to form a group that went and attempted to make remedies within the HOA. We went to the city, sat through several meetings with the mayor, manager at that time, I believe council members at that time, sat in on meetings, visited with the developers, hoping to find solutions to some of the problems we had, and worked for literally till today, still actively pursuing some of those efforts. That would be to the extent of what I've done here in Van Alstyne as far as community efforts and working with the city.
Okay, thank you.
As I mentioned a while ago, I was a volunteer fireman here for many a year. I also worked with the people that got in trouble in municipal court and was overseeing the community service workers from municipal court on Saturdays, so these people could work out some of their fines. And like I say, I was instrumental in building these facilities for the city. 28 years in the fire department's a long time to be volunteering and doing for the city. And that's about everything that I've done with the city. I did do a little work in public works for about 4 months while I was looking for a public works director. And I got out and worked with these guys just like I was part of those guys working by the hour. And, you know, if you're going to be a part of something, I feel that you need to get out and work with the people that's in these jobs. And I enjoyed working there, and that's about the stint that I have done for the citizens of Alstyne.
Activity for the city.
Thank you. I came to Van Alstyne 4 years ago on about June the 15th, somewhere around there, to visit friends that I had here in Van Alstyne. I had retired from a radio station. I've been on the air a couple of hours a day talking about community activities, political items, different events and concerns of that community. And I really came down here to visit, and 2 weeks later I went back and loaded everything up and moved to Van Alstyne on the 4th of July weekend. And I fell in love with the town when I first moved down here because of the small town hospitality and the friendliness. My intention was to just stay in the kitchen at what was called the rib joint at the time, and just mind my own business and be the kitchen help. And that's what I wanted to do, just to have a life that was much less stressful than I had as a radio station manager. After I saw some of the things that were going on in Van Alstyne, I had met some of the city management people and listened to the citizens of Van Alstyne that were not happy with some of the things that were going on, were not happy with the response they were getting from their city management. I decided to take the experience that I had with political experience, the dealing with events and the different things that go on in city politics. I felt like I could contribute to that and to help, and that's why I decided to run. one of the things that I'm the most proud of that we've done with Bucksnort Barbecue is we have initiated a free Christmas lunch that we have from 11 to 3 on every Christmas day. Have a lot of volunteers that help with that. Last year we served over 250 people, and it is fun and rewarding to have an event like that that you can call your own.
I've worked for different things, like I said, in the city. I was appointed as the election judge and did that for a total of 16 years. I was also appointed by a mayor way back to the LEPC, which is the Emergency Preparedness Committee or Council out of Sherman. And that was based on my Air Force training. I was a disaster preparedness officer. And no, I don't prepare disasters, but I've been trained to, in case of nuclear, biological, or chemical warfare, or any kind of like an accident on the interstate where a bomb or a missile would fall off. I had that type of training through my 27 years with the Air Force. And I've also, like I said, taught in the town, and I've taught another course that I've taught is poll watcher training, because I do believe in fair and honest elections. And so we have several coming up between now and the primary, but I think that's critical. So I think that's an important part of all of our elections. Another thing that I've been doing and been very active in is training on what's happening in our country. And we've had, some people will say, oh yes, Tea Party, but the Tea Party is for education. And what we're doing is teaching people on things like the Second Amendment rights, our freedom of speech, and this type of training to include sustainable development, being aware of that and not going into smart meters. And there's a whole bunch of things that the Constitution, we've read the Constitution, and just find that these types of sessions are so informative for our young people and for our old people as well.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. It'll be addressed to Mr. Lewis first. What do you feel is the most important issue facing the city of Van Alstyne in the next 2 years?
I believe in the next 2 years, what we need to really work on is saving some money. I don't know how they are now with putting money back, but everybody hollers about, let's fix my street. I really believe we need to save some money for a couple of years and get some money put back to where we can fix the infrastructures under streets and then fix the streets, and then they're fixed and we won't have to do it again. I wholeheartedly believe we need to work on financial issues, and then after we get the finances where they need to be, then we can open up and maybe do some stuff that needs to be done throughout the city.
The most important thing for me is to have a set of plans. I was trained in this during my time in the Air Force. I was the Deputy Director of Plans for the Reserve Personnel Center, and I also was Plans and Procedures. And I think it's critical that we know where we're going, that we have a direction, not just do this here today and this there today, tomorrow, but have a set of plans that we can look forward to, that we have what we're doing immediately, what we'll be doing in the next 5 years, and then even a 10-year plan, that we can be going in a direction. And we have some situations, financial situations in the town, and getting ready for growth, I think, is so critical. And we can do this through planning. We need to become very business friendly and encourage people to come into the town, business people, so that we can get a basis for finances, that we can take care of some of the immediate needs and the future needs, that the city can grow and go forward.
Okay.
It's obvious to everyone, what I'll be saying, that we live in a very unstable economic time. I deal with budgets daily, develop and oversee a roughly $4 million annual budget, and I know what the economy has done for the last 3 years particularly. What the city is experiencing, and I'm somewhat on the outside looking in, but I've attended enough council meetings and I see the problems with the streets and various things like that with the town. What you're having problems with is a lack of planning in the past that built a capital reserve for these repairs, like referred to by Mr. Lewis. You must build a reserve. If you don't, deferred maintenance will overcome you. And that's the situation that the city of Van Alstyne is in. It has a very high degree of deferred maintenance in its streets, in its infrastructure, its water and sewage. It takes years to build that reserve up. It can't be done in a matter of 1 or 2 years. It's going to be longer than that. It's going to be, like Karen referred to, as a 5, 10, even a 15-year plan to build this up. The only way to build that up is we need growth. And in order to get growth, we need to go out and we need to promote the assets that we have, which is our fire department, our police department, our school district. We need to bring people in that are paying taxes. We need to bring in businesses. We need to get the tax revenue base built up to where we can start building capital reserve and go after the streets, go after the infrastructure, go after the problems that we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have seen I've been on the council for the last couple of years, I've seen that there are a number of fronts that we need to attack for planning for the future. We need to have the infrastructure in place to be able to handle growth. Now, I don't have good news for you tonight. Fixing the streets is not the #1 thing that needs to be done because there's no money to do it, for one thing. We've never had a plan in place to have perpetual maintenance for our sewer and water lines. That is a decades-old problem that has never been addressed. It can't be done in 1 year, 1 term for any candidate. But we have to have the adequate infrastructure to have growth, which we don't have at this point. That's the first problem that we need to address. It's a catch-22. We don't have the infrastructure. We want more growth. That's the answer. You either have growth and more houses built, or you annex property, which is a very dangerous thing that I'm not even going to advocate. But to have growth, you have to have adequate infrastructure. You have to have adequate sewer lines and adequate water lines to service those new homes. We don't have that. To me, that's the #1 thing that we need to address is adequate infrastructure, not the aging infrastructure or the streets, but we have to be able to have the sewer lines and the water lines adequate to handle the growth that we need to make our town grow.
Third question, it's an issue that I've heard even from as far away as Fairview. And it's this discussion about whether Van Alstyne should have a city manager type of government or a mayoral administrative form of government. So the third question, and it will be addressed to Mr. Smith first, do you plan to work with the city manager form of government? And what do you think about the police department and the fire departments at present?
The only way we can be successful in Van Alstyne is to have a city manager form of government. You can't ask an elected mayor, a volunteer, to run a $5 million budget. An elected person that is volunteering for that position doesn't have the knowledge, doesn't have the experience or the education to be a city manager. Van Alstyne is past the point that a city administrator, mayor form of government can be successful. It can't happen. We need someone that is educated, that is experienced, and is dedicated to making a town grow. There are too many laws that are in effect. There are too many factors that we have to consider when your city grows. We have to have a professional to get us out of the trap that we're in. And I don't use that word lightly. We have financial issues in Van Alstyne. We have infrastructure issues that we have to address. A city manager form of government is the only way that we can be successful. I think our police department has taken a great turn. I think it's great that Tim Barnes has been appointed as chief of police. I think our fire department continuously trains and is ready for whatever comes their way. I'm very proud of what the police department, compared to the police department I knew 4 years ago, we are leaps and bounds above what we had. And the fire department is equally as aggressive in their training and their dedication to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Well, when the issue was first brought up and the vote was taken about a city manager form of government, I supported it and endorsed it 100%. I have not changed my mind, nor do I waver in any way. I think that we, as Jim has said, we do need someone that's qualified, someone that has studied and trained for this type of position, and a volunteer from within the city, I just don't think could handle the problems that we're facing and help us out. Like I said, I endorse exactly what Jim has said, that it is critical that we have someone in place, and I think the individual that is there now is qualified. He has been doing a lot in just a very short time to improve things, or to get things on a road to success. As far as the fire and police department are, I have people coming to me saying, well, you know, we have too many cars. These are things that I'd like to look at when I get elected, to see just, you know, are there problems that, minor things that can be changed. And you know, salaries has been also something that I've been confronted with. So these things need looking at, and working with the city manager, I think we will conquer these situations in time.
I fully support the city manager means of the city of Van Alstyne. When you deal with firms such as the EPA, TCEQ, I'm not sure how familiar you may be with them. There was so much involved. I recently went through an EPA audit, 2 years in completing. There was so much red tape, paperwork involved in these types of transactions that you must have someone on a professional level that knows what they're dealing with. One of the things that I noted in some of my early encounters with City Hall was I felt there needed to be a higher degree of professionalism. And I fully believe that Mr. Rodriguez, who has been hired by our current council, has done an excellent job in hiring Mr. Rodriguez. I have met with him several times. We have talked, we've discussed, and he is very committed to the city of Van Alstyne, very well educated, very well aware of the challenges that he faces, but yet he's willing to take those challenges on. As for the police and fire, the police and fire department, as I said before, is the biggest asset that we have in the school district. I believe Mr. Barnes, who I know also very well, doing in his position currently as interim chief. The fire department, I know there were some changes made as far as to who they answer to when the other city manager went out. One of the things that I noticed lacking was a level of structure and discipline within the city organization. Being from a military background, I have a strong drive for discipline and drive and commitment. Mr. Rodriguez is doing that. He has placed responsibility back on people. He expects productivity from the people, and ultimately there is accountability, and that's what we need. Thank you.
You know, a few years back when the petition came around for city manager form of government, I felt that Van Alstyne wasn't ready for a city manager form of government, okay? And I kind of voted against it. But since then, you know, I feel that with what we have now in place with a city manager form of government, I feel that we have the best city manager that any city could have in Van Alstyne is very fortunate to have Mr. Rodriguez as a city manager. As far as our fire and police, I think we have the best entities that they are around. And, you know, everything came together yesterday. When the tragedy happened downtown Van Alstyne, we had a police and fire rescue team there that was trained and knew what to do. The city manager was on scene. This is what I like to see in a city manager. I don't want to see the city manager sit in his office and never get out and communicate with the people. So therefore, I think we have a fine one. Our police chief in the past didn't communicate, but the one we have now, you see him out communicating with people. The fire department, I hadn't seen the fire chief out communicating with people. But you know, communication with our citizens is vital importance. You know where your police and fire and your city manager stand, and we do have the best facilities that money can buy. We have a great city manager, a police chief, and a fire chief. So, you know, we need to get out and kind of meet these guys and understand why they do their job. But we have the best that we have to offer is in Van Alstyne. Thank you.
The next question we have will be addressed to Ms. Toiber first. And it has several components, so I'll go through it a little slowly. As a city council member, what's your plan as a team member on taking Van Alstyne into the future? Or as I like to call it, your position in terms of wanting to bring in new business or to keep it country? And we'll start with Ms. Toiber.
Well, as I've said before, I think we need goals and a direction, a plan. I think I had served or was a member of the Sherman Chamber of Commerce for a while, and that's when I had my business over in Gunner. I had a small embroidery factory over there, and I joined the chamber in Sherman and watched how they were going on and actively going after business, to include going up to Canada to try to recruit people to come into the town, into the Sherman-Denison area, or basically Sherman area. And I think we do have to be active and aggressive in going out to find businesses. Now, you know, we have a lovely, quaint downtown area, and I think the downtown area, with a lot of retail shops, will make it so much more inviting for people to come and to shop here. And of course, that'll give us tax revenues. Also, you know, the industrial park is there, and we can bring in, as recently we had Caterpillar come and use one of the facilities. But we need to go out and get business, and all kinds of business. Like I said, retail stores, businesses, and move on to industrial types of things. So I'm for all of the above.
Okay. I will very much be a team member on council. I believe that the council needs to work collaboratively with the new manager, and we need to come up with long-range plans, 5-year, 10-year, 15, like I said before. These plans need to be conveyed over to our CDC and EDC, and they need to be directed in what the city needs, the direction we need to head, and what we expect in the years to come. I fully understand, like I said earlier, I grew up in a small town. Probably could walk 15 miles and knock on the door and know someone at any time. I understand small town hospitality, but hospitality is also a state of mind. You can maintain a small town hospitality and grow. And if you don't grow, ultimately you're withering on the vine. You will cease to exist. And you can drive. I ride motorcycles, and I love to take the back roads, stay off the interstates. And as you drive through Route 66, some of the old routes and things like that, you go through the towns that were withered and died. They're all over the United States. And Van Alstyne should not be like that, sitting on 75. We have the capability to thrive and grow, and we have the distance that's perfect from the metropolitan of Dallas to bring in the people, bring in the businesses that we need. Now, there may be issues Mr. Smith's referring to as the infrastructure, which I know there is. That will have to be set down as a group, collectively decide, do we go after infrastructure first or do we go after growth first? I haven't made a decision on either one, but I'm open to either one when we sit down and work together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I am ready to be a team player with the council, the rest of the council members if I'm elected. I'm ready to be a team player with the EDC, CDC, and the Chamber of Commerce. All of these facilities or these groups have to work together to make this city grow and move forward. And I don't think in the past that has happened. You know, we teach our kids sports and they learn how to play together. Sometimes the grown-ups don't play too good together. So I think what we've got here is all of these organizations are fine organizations, but they're not working together as a team. So if you put everybody together as a team, like you would a firefighter in his fire station, everybody trains together, everybody breaks bread together, everybody works together. That's how you're able to save structure fires. You're able to save the people's structures and their lives because you work together as a team. So yes, I believe a team player is very important to the City Council of Van Alstyne and be a team player with the rest of the organizations to move this city forward. Thank you. That if everybody works together and you make a little growth come to Van Alstyne, we have to go out and recruit that growth to get it here. You know, if we don't work together to get it here, then it's not going to grow. I mean, it's simple as that. The infrastructure's under the ground, the water and the sewer, that is something that has to be addressed. The city does charge an impact fee for that type of facilities. If that impact fee money was put back in a place to where nobody touches it, then we'll have money to work on our infrastructures. But it should have started years ago. But since then, with the new city manager, I believe that the infrastructures should be put into a deposit in the bank by themselves to correct the infrastructures under the ground.
Thank you. I agree with the candidates about a combined effort with the money that is being dedicated to the EDC and the CDC. That's a fourth of our sales tax. That's a 0.25% goes to each entity. I think that money, combined with the help of the chamber and funding by the chamber and the city, could step us up, ramp us up to have one individual that could do more for the city as far as promotions and going out and seeking people and not waiting for somebody to come here looking for something. As I've said, the infrastructure is something that has to be there before you can build houses and build businesses. You have to have that. So that's an important thing to do, but I think the combined effort under a more of a single management has been mentioned by our city manager. The EDC, the CDC, and the city, and with the help of the chamber, we can do some amazing things. We can draw people in. As far as keeping it cosmopolitan or country, I'm obviously going to vote for country. We still have to have cosmopolitan. We still have to be able to attract people to live here and to come here. But I happen to have a business that's patronized by the folks that come from Dallas on the motorcycles, that want to come into a little place that's hometown, that is a lot of them refer to as a hole in the wall, the sole proprietor type business. If somebody comes to my store and the door's unlocked and they come in and I'm not there, they usually know to go to the drugstore because I'm probably over there drinking coffee. That's the Mayberry effect that I want us to keep, and the people of Van Alstyne are the ones that make it country.
Is something that will clarify what all of you in some ways have alluded to. You've all kind of stressed the need to have a long-term plan, a 5, 10, maybe even 15-year plan that that the council and government as a whole are working toward. And this is a big picture question before we get to some nitty-gritty details. But what would your vision be for Van Alstyne in 5 or 10 years? And for this, we'll start with Mr. Jennings.
Okay, in 5 or 10 years, once we sit down and develop a plan, the budget is the most critical thing. Not knowing for certain the budgets and the percentages that's set aside and allocated for the various departments and things like this, I can tell you firsthand that in the budgets I work with, utilities are a tremendous cost. The city, I would think utilities would be somewhat significant in that we're lighting the communities, we're pumping water. We need to look at the utilities and means there that we can produce some cost savings. One area that I know that I have not been involved with, but I have been involved in the past, I have been involved with the city, I would say, is wastewater treatment. Tremendous amount of water can be, a tremendous amount of money can be spent in wastewater treatment facilities. I've worked within those facilities for 30 plus years. I think in 5 years, I think we need to look at streamlining the budget, looking at where our greatest expenses are, seeing where we can produce some savings, seeing where we can start saving for the capital reserve that we need to build, and make the first 5-year goal to establish some type of a capital reserve where we can start then working on the infrastructure and going in that direction.
I'll follow up with that question. If the candidates could say maybe 1 or 2 areas where they see potentially saving in the budget as they answer that question. Specific programs or areas to cut?
I think I touched on that. I think you need to look at some of your areas such as utilities and water treatment. There would be some hard decisions made, and I would need to look at it, but healthcare. I know for a fact healthcare is a tremendous cost in budgets and in labor. There's numerous areas that you need to start looking, and there'll be some difficult decisions that may need to be made. I make them now. Some of them are very, very hard to make. Some of them harder to make than others. Some of them at times affect people's lives and become very difficult. But you have to look at everything. When you get into the situation that I feel the city is in, as far as infrastructure and the things we need to address, nothing can be set aside. Everything will need to be looked at as far as cost savings.
Thank you. 10 years.
In 5 to 10 years, I'd like to see Van Alstyne with some nice paved streets and, and some curbs and gutters put in them. But it's going to take a whole lot more than my imagination to make this happen. I would like to see Van Alstyne with a few more businesses, a few more rooftops to help some of these budget items that we have. I believe it can be made possible in 5 or 10 years to have some more businesses in Van Alstyne to help pay some of these expenses and rooftops that pays taxes. And that's what we're lacking. You say cut items. At this time, I couldn't really tell you what we need to cut without studying the budget. It's been about 9 years since I looked at a city budget. But the first thing people wants to holler is why do we have 10 police cars? Can't we cut some of those police cars? Why does a fire truck have to go with an ambulance every time it makes a call? Well, you go to cutting from these two entities, and guess what happens? People lose their lives. So now we're looking at health care here. Do we really want to cut? And that's the first 2 places that people's going to complain we need to cut. But just as sure as the world's turning, if we cut it, we're going to have problems. So I think we really need to look at other items before we go to cutting our public safety and our fire and EMS. And that's for a bunch of people, you'll hear it on the streets every day. Why do we have so many cop cars? We have to have them, okay? We have to have all those fire trucks in there. We have to have all the policemen, all the firemen. So I really, I don't know where we would start cutting that until I sat down and looked at a budget. But those are two entities that I probably wouldn't touch. I tried to figure out a way to give the fire department and the EMS just a few more dollars to operate with.
Okay.
Looking 5 years down the road, I've tried to do that consistently, is looking into the future and seeing what we can do. One of the things that I don't think we asked our city manager if he had the ability to do is to juggle. I think we should have asked him that, because that's what it's going to take. Van Alstyne spends almost $1 million a year on bond payments. Our tax revenue from property tax is about $1 million. We spend all of our money that we get from property tax just to pay our notes, just to pay our bonds. And those bond payments are scheduled to go up a substantial amount every year for the next 5 years. That's a tough thing to have to deal with when you have more expense and more expensive bond payments. Cutting costs, I think our city manager has proven that. We had when our chief of police retired, we moved somebody up. His position, Barnes's position, was not filled. We're saving about $90,000 a year or more on that position. Every time somebody is eliminated from the employment of the city, that position is not filled. That's a cost-cutting method. One of the things on health insurance that I don't think a lot of people know, and I tried at the last budget meetings that we had, the city of Van Alstyne pays 100% of the employee's insurance. If you have your spouse or your kids on your insurance, the city pays half of that. If you have your entire family, which is a $19,000 a year premium, the city pays 75% of that cost. We have to get real. I don't like to hurt people. I don't want to cost people money, especially our employees that are dedicated to our town, but you have to get in touch with reality. Nobody, there's not a business anywhere, municipal business, that pays 75% of somebody's insurance for their family and their spouse.
Like I said, planning, I think, is very critical, and we need to be looking to the future. And again, I feel one way is to bring businesses in. Also to attract growth in, we have, as I was walking some of the streets, there are so many vacant homes. I was absolutely shocked at how many homes are being torn down or need to be torn down, vacated, just people not living there. So we're missing tax dollars that way too from people who, homes being vacant. So that's one way that if we can improve the housing situation as well as getting the businesses, I think that'll help. One of the areas that has been a real concern of mine is I've been looking at the county level as well as the city level is the salaries, the benefits, and the entitlements. And I haven't delved into completely the Texas municipal retirement system, but I think that we need to look at that. I've looked at things like in San Diego, they've gone to a 401k system, and these are things that I'd like to look at and see if there are ways that we can cut costs and also help the employees by changing some of these things around so that we have a less cost to the city, but also a chance for people to grow their wealth as well through another system. I know military retirement systems are being looked at. Everything is being looked at, and I think it's time we do that too.
Where we'd like to see Van Alstyne in 5 to 10 years, and some of the areas we might have to cut in order to focus on some things we'd like to see down the road. We could talk about the revenue side, though, in a little bit more depth. What do you see as other possible revenue streams for the community in terms of attracting businesses, tax revenues, or even annexing other areas within the ETJ? And I'd like to start the question with Mr. Lewis. Revenue annex or annexing?
As far as annexing, when you go to annexing some land in, you're gonna have to put the infrastructures in. We don't have the money for that. As far as other revenues coming into the city, we need to give some incentives. Maybe a little incentive to somebody to bring a business to Van Alstyne. You know, EDC donated land to Metal Industries, they donated land to Foxworth, and that's a great deal. But you see, Foxworth, they're not paying the revenue and taxes because the contractors is the guys that pays their taxes quarterly, and guess where the majority of them live? Collin County. So we're not getting the tax revenue off of that. What we need is a nice lumber yard that we can go to and buy materials. So we need to attract a lumber yard for that purpose where we can get tax revenue. So we need to give some incentives to get these businesses to come to town and utilize us. Like the 16 acres that Metal Industries got, that brought Metal Industries here, and now they drove off and left us high and dry after they got their 16 acres of land. And Foxworth is not benefiting us a whole bunch because they're not paying them much tax revenue. You know, those taxes are going to Collin County. So we need to all work together and get more revenue started in town, and I believe that given some incentives, we could attract a bunch of businesses.
I've learned over the years to preface some of my statements with, I have been told, or it's my understanding, because I have trusted people with what they've told me, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Annexation is probably the quickest form of generating revenue. It would be extremely difficult politically as well as financially to do that. As an example, and again, this is one of those I've been told, the Cold Springs Industrial Park that Van Alstyne has is outside the city limits. Mr. Swift, the head guy from Caterpillar, was in my restaurant the other day, and he said, we're going to add $5 million worth of value to that building. That's going to increase your taxes that we pay to the city. No, it's not. The industrial park is outside the city limits. That is, and that's attractive to businesses to be outside, so you don't have to pay the city property tax. So it's a good draw, but that is an example of, it's great to have that company, and they're going to have 75 employees there that, fortunately for me, have to eat lunch somewhere, and I've tried my best to develop a relationship and a friendship with them for them to do that. But we have to have a combination of several factors. One, increasing businesses is the fastest way. Increasing rooftops, but we still have the issue with infrastructures that we have to provide for those.
Well, I've been saying all along, I think we need to bring businesses in. It's, you know, over the years that I've lived here, I've noticed one place will open and another place will close, and it's just been no growth. And some of the things that I've heard are that people don't support the restaurants, people don't support the businesses, and consequently small businesses can't exist without people going to them. Most of the people who have vehicles, other than people that just live right in the city and walk to places, most of them will go up to Sherman, to Sam's, or down to Walmart or the Target centers. So we have to find ways and work together with all the different entities in town to make the businesses in town attractive and encourage people to shop locally. So as far as getting revenues, yes, increasing businesses, and I've heard people say, well, if we have all these mail order or these different types of businesses, we're not getting revenue from that. I haven't checked that out. I don't know what the thing is, but I think we do need more businesses that actually sell things. So annexation, I don't know that much about it, so I can't talk to that. I know that they've tried to work with Anna and getting different things in, but or dividing areas. Developers have come and gone, and you know, building homes and building businesses, I think, are the ways that we'll get the basis for growth and money.
What I envision is, and I touched on it earlier, I think we need to build with the assets we currently have. We have a tremendous school system. Karen made reference to empty houses. We need to work on putting people in these houses to get families in here paying on the tax base. It's not adding to the infrastructure of the homes already exist. We need to go after a demographic of 25 to 40 with school-age children and put the younger families in here. We need to go after business. The business we need to go after is businesses such as O'Reilly, AutoZone, Premier Pond, businesses that went to Anna and built that don't put a load on your infrastructure. They are businesses that bring in people that add to the tax base, but they don't add to the burden of having to support the infrastructure like a restaurant would. Not to go against Ms. Red, we need restaurants, but you don't have the.
You may go hungry.
We don't have the load of the grease traps, food preparation, some of those things. Stay with what we have. We have some homes we need to sell. We need to draw small businesses that don't want the infrastructure. That can be done without annexing. I'd have to learn more about annexing. Don't know enough to even speak on it right now. But would think that would be one of the last things we would do to draw business. I think we have the assets to draw businesses and families now and build from that point.
We're going to get much more specific. The general questions are passed, and I hope we can maintain our civility through the next round. For some of you, it might be a nice wake-up. Again, keep in mind that I do not make these questions and to remain impartial throughout. These questions come from the Chamber of Commerce, and of course those that have come in, several of you have turned in questions. If we got to them, we're reading them. So now we're to the nitty-gritty. The first question will be directed to Mr. Smith. And how do you perceive the current status of our police and fire and city manager positions and salaries, and as well as results? Now, we've gone into the positions somewhat already, but with regard specifically to salaries and results.
As being part of the council that hired our current city manager, we pay him, his salary is $89,900. That is a fair salary based on budget, city size, the number of employees. That's a very fair salary that we have for him. He has saved us more than his salary just since he's been here. He started on the 28th of November of last year. He's already saved us more than his salary will be for a year's time. He is very effective at what he's doing. The price tag that we have on our chief of police right now is appropriate, I think. It is much less than what we were paying a former police chief. Now you talk about the salary, which was the salary for the city manager is $89,900. There was a term that our interim city manager, Denny Wheat, used as the fully loaded price. That's the cost of Social Security, insurance, retirement, all of those things that go into that. We were paying $106,000 for our former city manager. We're paying $89,900 for the city manager that we have now, and he's done a job 10 times better than has been done in the past, in my opinion. We had a chief of police that his salary alone was in excess of $95,000 a year. That has been reduced down to somewhere around 60 something, and I'm not sure of the exact figure. I think our fire department, we noticed in the last budget go around that our fire department, in proportion to other city employees, is underpaid, and we took a step to add money to the salaries. As a side note, our fire chief took that $22,000, I believe it was, for salaries. He took none of that himself. He gave the entire amount to his employees.
Okay,